All right, so we're gonna be watching Rachel Maddow on attacks, her point of view on attacks on the rule of law. And she says Trump and supporters of Trump do not care about being wrong. So let's see what she has to say. And I think I saw the thumbnail. Special guest of this thing is gonna be Nicole Wallace. So let's see what goes on here.
The idea that there is an abstract rule of law or an abstract democracy that exists ambiently in the atmosphere and someday, distantly in the future, we might lose it. It's not how this goes. The rule of law is mortal.
Wait. I gotta replay that.
That exists and there is an abstract rule. The idea that there is an abstract rule of law or an abstract democracy that exists ambiently in the atmosphere and someday, distantly in the future, we might lose it. It's not how this goes. The rule of law is mortal.
It's funny she says that because it already got. I mean, the rule of law already started to get taken. I mean, the people don't understand. The law is not here to protect normal citizens. The law is that's not the point of the law. The point of the law and how the law works is it's used as a weapon against people who stand up to the establishment. That's all it is. It's nothing more, nothing less. And the fact that she says that someday our rule of law may change, and our rule of law, like it hasn't already been changing over the past 50 years, like,
right? It can be killed. It is wounded when the people involved in the judicial system and the adjudication of alleged crimes are being threatened and harassed and intimidated and pressured out of their jobs for doing that work.
Hi there.
Oh shit, there's Nicole Wallace. Just like, the Israeli government, threatening the International Criminal Court individuals and their families. Not unlike that, right?
Everybody, it's 5 o'clock now in New York. The rule of law is mortal. What's more, it's under dire threat.
The rule of law is mortal. That's their new catchphrase. That's almost as good as democracy dies in darkness. That's almost as good as that. That's good. That's good. The rule of law is mortal.
That was my call.
Rachel Maddow, building up to an interview with Fonnie Willis is something I've quoted multiple times. It'll make sense why I played it just now. Donald Trump has spent the better part of the last 8 years doing everything in his power to strip from the American people their confidence in all of our institutions. By his telling, our elections are rigged, verdicts are rigged, everything is rigged. In the long term, these attacks have an overwhelmingly corrosive and dangerous effect on the very foundations and pillars of our democracy. And again, the rule of law is under attack. In Rachel's words, it needs to be protected. So it was heartening, seemed like maybe he was listening, when Attorney General Merrick Garland submitted to the Washington Post today an op-ed that served as something of a public warning. Quote, unfounded attacks on the Justice Department must end. And then after taking through a series of recent conspiracy theories, falsehoods, and threats of violence, Garland insists such acts could cause... Coming from the Washington Post, quote by Merrick Garland, by the way. Real harm to the Department of Justice and to the men and women who help carry its mission. It was reminiscent of what he told the Republican-led House Judiciary Committee just last week. Certain members of this committee and the Oversight Committee are seeking contempt as a means of obtaining, for no legitimate purpose, sensitive law enforcement information that could harm the integrity of future investigations. I will not be intimidated, and the Justice Department will not be intimidated. These threats will not go away. They won't go away because of what he said or wrote. They won't go away in short order. In fact, if today proves anything, it's that even when the rule of law works out in a way that damages the current president, Trump's political adversary, and could actually benefit Trump politically, President Biden's own son was convicted in a court of law, many elements of the far right still insist that there's some conspiracy at play, that it's all a sham.
Obviously the conviction of Hunter Biden is obviously a ploy to not only distract people from the political prosecution of the Trump case, but also to avert people's attention away from the more important things that came from that whole Hunter Biden thing, which wasn't the fact that he was on drugs or he was recording it or he had a gun or whatever. It's the fact that the Burisma deals, and the fact that the only reason why they wanted to talk to Hunter Biden was, in his own words, because of his last name. And they really wanted to get to his father, and his father was the one that was really doing all the deals. So
It's still rigged. Again, it's Rachel's warning. The rule of law is mortal, and now it is up to all of us to protect it. It's where we start the hour with our friend and colleague, the host of the Rachel Maddow Show here on MSNBC, Rachel Maddow. She's also the host of the podcast Ultra. The second season premiered just yesterday. The first episode is available with much more to come. We'll get to that in a minute. Rachel, it's such a heavy news cycle. Your thoughts?
Well, I think that if the Biden administration has weaponized the legal system of this country to only ever go after Republicans and conservatives and never go after Democrats, I think today proves that they're doing an absolutely terrible job of that. Boy, are they really falling down on the job, allowing the president's son not only to be prosecuted, but convicted, and then somehow manipulating President Joe Biden into saying, I respect the rule of law. No, I'm not pardoning my son. He may appeal, but we support him and respect the jury's verdict. Wow, that is really not what you would expect. We've also got, Bob Menendez on trial, Democratic senator. We've got Henry Cuellar, Democratic congressman who...
But of course, Hunter Biden isn't going to face any insignificant or cruel conditions or confines of a prison. So, obviously a ploy.
Is criminally indicted and going on trial. The important thing about this is that it gives lie to the Republican critique, to the Trump screed, that there's something about the justice system that is skewed against them and is designed to help Democrats. I mean, I think we know it.
there is obviously something skewed with the justice system against the Republicans, and which has only made them realize that which the Republicans used to be very aligned with the justice system, that they could do no wrong. The justice system in their eyes, that used to be the point of view. That also used to be the point of view of liberals. But over the past decade, we have seen a political shift to where now the Republicans understand that the justice system is not here to protect anybody. It is not here for the rule of law. It is simply here to uphold the rules-based order that the government has for all of us. And the whole targeting Trump thing has only made them realize that. And unfortunately, with them realizing that and them turning on the justice system, the liberals have, used that as a sign to unfortunately shift in favor of the justice system, which is, an unfortunate thing. You would hope that, after years and years and years and decades and decades and decades of the liberal class being staunchly against the justice system and, factually, you know, having their criticisms about, the the corruption within it, um, you would hope that once Republicans started seeing the light on just how bad the justice system is, that the liberals would continue to have that perspective. But unfortunately, everything has to be a partisan thing.
In our heads, that hasn't been a good thing.
So yeah, in conclusion, the justice system is they target everybody. I mean, the FBI and the CIA, like, you'd be ridiculous to think that, like, the same people who think that, there were FBI people, or those type of department people like CIA, FBI people who infiltrated BLM, you know what I mean, and made it much more violent, you know what I mean, and stoked up these, the violence of these riots and protests, are the same people who believe that it can never be possible that the FBI and the Capitol Police infiltrated and instigated the violence in the Capitol. But the truth is that the FBI, the CIA, they infiltrate all these organizations to make them buy. Like, a lot of these organizations who are who the FBI perceive as, and the government perceive as, not just that, the whole entire government perceive as anti-establishment, really aren't that dangerous in terms of physical violence or environmental violence. But the thing is, when they're they usually get these police officers or FBI agents or whatever, or Secret Service people or whatever, to try to stoke up the violence. So then that way they can use it as almost like a false flag type deal, like as an incentive. So that way they can start coming down and cracking skulls and stuff like that. So, yep. So yeah, the Justice Department is your enemy.
Faith.
Critique. But a day like today should disprove it, right? If they were arguing on a rational basis, and that was based on facts.
If Rachel Maddow was arguing on a rational scale, she wouldn't have pushed Russiagate for the past 8 years, and she wouldn't still be pushing it to this day.
It's not based on facts. It's just designed as an attack against the American system of government.
It's not based on facts. It's just based on an attack.
Because they're running against the American system of government. And it is
Remember, folks, every accusation from these people is an admission of their own wrongdoing.
really not about the facts of any individual case, including those against Trump. I mean, I think that my habit that I'm determined to break in this election cycle is to stop looking for the circuit breaker, or the thing that breaks the fever, right? I immediately went over to conservative media to see if, did we get them right? Did we show them? Did they believe now that the rule of law is a real thing and not what you just described? And it didn't, and I was disappointed again. And I want to...
Do they believe now that the rule of law was a real thing after, Hamilton 68 was a fake website and the Steele dossier was inconclusive and the Mueller report, he had to admit, because he was under oath and he had to admit that, obviously they've heard the top of the FBI is never going to, be held accountable for any of these lies that are portrayed and spewed out. So obviously he had to admit that there was no conclusive evidence tying Trump to Russia and, Russia rigging the 2016 election. But, the walls are closing in.
Stop asking the wrong questions. And I feel like so much.
They don't just want you to stop asking the wrong questions. They want you to not even ask questions at all.
Much of what we have to get right this time, because way too much is on the line, is that the question isn't, did some on the right?
Guys, our democracy is on the line. Our democracy that we lost with the Citizens United Act or with the Louis Powell memorandum. It's called the attack upon American enterprises. Yeah, like we haven't, but now our democracy is at stake, of course.
Finally become persuaded that the rule of law is a real thing, and not only do we have to protect it, but it treats everyone fairly, because look at Joe Biden stood by as his son was convicted by jury of his peers, and he said no, he won't pardon him. The question is, was it all a projection, right? And I wonder what you think, what you take from this, that there is no equivalence, there is no need to seek out symmetry on both sides of reason, because the right isn't asking the same questions, they're not having the same conversation. Yeah, there's a reason that, that Donald Trump and support
The right, it's funny how they target the right, but this is the same news organization who was created by and is still funded by, to this day, by right-wingers. So
supporters of Trump have been immune to fact-checking over the past 5 to 8 years, 9 years, I guess now. It's because they don't care about being wrong, right? This isn't a fact-based appeal that they're making to people. They're trying to make you feel like America is in an emergency, that America is under existential attack from evil people who must be destroyed by any means necessary. There's an enemy within. And we're in such dire straits as a country that we need to get rid of our system of government, get rid of all this process, get rid of all these different people having a say, get rid of all these safeguards and checks and balances, and instead...
What? Is that not what the cable media and the Democratic Party did for the past 10 years? Wait.
An emergency. They don't care about being wrong, right? This isn't a fact-based appeal that they're making to people. They're trying to make you feel like America is in an emergency, that America is under...
Same as them, they want you to think that your democracy was taken from you on January 6, 2021, when really it was taken from you decades ago, even before the Citizens United case.
Existential attack from evil people who must be destroyed by any means necessary. There's an enemy within. And
this is the same media that leads you to believe that, your neighbor's the one that's trying to screw you over. Your neighbor's the one that's gonna fuck you over just because they vote in a different political alignment. These are the people that are trying to separate you and, trying to make it seem like the people right next door to you are the existential crisis, when really the existential crisis are the people who are trying to divide people on these media forums. Because once people realize who the true enemy of the people are, which are not the people being treacherously deceived, it is the people trying to drive a wedge in between unionization and an uprising against the ruling class. In such dire straits as a country that we need to get rid of our system of government, get rid of all this process, get rid of all these different people having a say, get rid of all these safeguards and checks and balances, and instead just have somebody who's going to slay the demon, just have somebody who's going to vanquish our enemies once and for all. And if you're going to make that kind of a case, you're not making it based on the observable facts in the world, where you're horrified if you're found to be wrong and then you correct it, or new facts arrive that disprove what you previously. Has she ever said she's wrong about Russiagate? Ever? Has there ever been a video where she came on to MSNBC or even some fucking podcast, some fake ass, independent podcast, and said, tell you the truth, I was really wrapped up in this whole Russiagate thing, and it got to the point where, I really thought it was true. And she really knows. She knows what the truth is about Russiagate. She knows it was a lie from the beginning. And she could say that, honestly, I got wrapped up in the whole entire thing, and, it got to a point where I almost wanted to believe it was true, no matter what evidence was presented. But then obviously that would make it to where, obviously, that she's not a credible news person, which she's not, because it's already been said in court that Rachel Maddow is not news. So, but she could have said that. She could have said that she was wrong about Russiagate, but no, she never said that.
That's what I'm saying, and so you course correct. It's not about the facts of what they are.
Entire personality in the modern day is based off an entire decade of propaganda of Russiagate and McCarthyism levels of, lies and smearing and, xenophobia and stuff like that towards the Russians and, to a lesser extent, but, sometimes to a more extent, the Chinese.
They are asserting. It's about the fight. They want the fight. And so it puts, those of us who are sort of still living in a reason-based world at a disadvantage because you can't bring reason to a fight with somebody who's not trying to actually rationally persuade you. They're just trying to upset you. But I still think that's what we have to do, right? I mean, I don't think we should expect the Trumpian right and the Trumpian Republican Party to be persuaded by new facts, but we should continue to report and describe and contextualize responsibly the actual facts of the world in the hopes that the crazy-making, conspiratorial, fact-free stuff that they're selling will ultimately have fewer buyers in the larger public, right? You can't move Mike Johnson, you can't move Kash Patel, you can't move Laura Trump or whatever her name is. You're not going to move these people with rational argument, let alone Trump himself, right? But maybe somebody who doesn't pay that much attention to politics and hears all this bluster from the right will also hear the facts from you and from responsible news organizations. And they'll recognize that.
She can't even say that, but she can't even say that fluidly.
Responsible news organizations, and they'll recognize that what they're trying to sell is a bunch of bunk, and maybe they won't.
She's not, because she knows she's not a news agency. She can't even say it. She can't even bring it out to say it properly. She's like the word news isn't even in her verbiage or her pronunciation or her vocabulary. It's not at all. To inform the populace, or to inform not just populace but the I guess that would be the population, the populace, whatever, to inform them, what I mean, is not her job. It's to continue to lie to people and to divide people, and make you think that the person who voted for Republican, or the person who voted for the Democrat is your enemy, when really the people who they're both voting for, the Republican and the Democrat, and the news that they're watching, such as MSNBC and Fox News, and the people who are on these news forums are actually the enemy.
For it. I mean, it's unromantic.
How does that inform how you're going to cover or think about the next 5 months, the general election, which is literally upon us? Yeah. Well, 2 things. One is that I just think we all need a lot of energy and stamina, and we need to take care of ourselves. And I mean that like in a way that sounds a little woo-woo, I know, but I think 5 months is both urgent. A 5-month timeline is both urgent, meaning we're already in the middle of it, and long enough that we can't exhaust ourselves and get tired and sick and worn out now. We need to have a lot of energy. We need to marshal our strength. We need to work together. We need to not get distracted by petty BS.
Yep, keep fighting and save all your energy, and keep fighting for people who are never going to change your life in any significant way. Keep fighting the good fight.
And by tactics that are designed to turn us against one another and make us, resent one another. I think particularly in the press, all the usual competitive mishigas in the press at this point has to be low priority, and what we need to focus on is doing our best work and supporting our colleagues in the press as they're attacked by the right. So that's some of it. But I also think, Nicole, that we need to stop talking about this as a threat that's going to arrive. That the bad thing might start happening if the election goes X way. The bad thing is here. The attacks on the legal system, the attacks on the election and our electoral system.
These past 10 years has only exposed the government for exactly what it is. And I do consider as people have considered it for years, even when it was, its own, independent thing before, the Telecommunications Act, and we had, 50 corporations who are 90% of the media. Now fast forward to modern day, 6 corporations are 90% of the media or more. The news media was always, a fourth branch of government, always. It's always been like that. And, these past 10 years of being in this, Trump era politics has only exposed these propagandists in the government and all avenues of the government, including the media, for, exactly the people that they are.
Those things are here. We're living with that now. The time to defend
Those things is now. It's not November. It's now, because now is when the damage is being done.
It's now. You gotta fight them now. You gotta fight these motherfuckers right now before they take your democracy from you.
But that's the task. Like, stay wedded to the truth, keep confronting them and contradicting them when they are wrong, and pointing out true things, and believe the best of our fellow citizens.